A warm welcome back to the Forensic Detailing channel. Should you wash your car with a sponge? That's going to be the topic of discussion for today's video. Wash media and sponges and the history of the use of sponges. This is riveting stuff. Should you wash your car with them? Now, just bear with me as I come in front of the camera. No pun intended. Now, the history of the sponge. We use this yellow one as an example, yeah, but we're going to talk about more advanced ones later on and all that sort of stuff. The history of the sponge, probably about 15 years ago when I started getting more interested in this, somewhere it became a taboo to use a sponge. And the information we were given is that if you have the surface of your car there, your clear coat or your paintwork, when you, and it's covered in, let's go high tech. Let's go high tech. Let's go high tech. Look at this. When you have loads of little dirt particles all over there, almost films of dirt, loads of dirt all over the car, what we were told is that this sponge sits on top of that dirt and it traps it against the surface, and then you move the sponge around in straight lines if you're advanced, and it drags the dirt over the surface, you know, in different directions, a bit like you're dragging an abrasive slurry over the surface to remove clear coat. You're dragging dirt over the surface, which could be sharp and you know, like sand and stuff like that, and it can scratch your car, mud, God knows what, bits of debris, all this contamination that sits on the surface. So it scratches it in the same way as rubbing abrasive over there does, because clear coat can be abraded, it's hard. The quality of that clear coat plays a role in how easily it scratches, which is important. That's what we were told, okay, and we all bought into that and stopped using sponges. And then I think one of my first videos was like the best wash mitt, where I went and looked at all those wash mitts, and I don't think I even included a sponge in there because it was such a taboo at the time. Yeah, and we're told that kind of wash mitts are softer. There's a microfiber one there. There's a microfiber one. That's the Carpro DabDab, which is really good. I'm not sure, I think it feels like microfiber, not viscose. Where's the, there's a wool one there, the Dooka pad. Do you remember that? Everyone used to talk about the Dooka pad. No one talks about it now. And they were all high quality pads. And then you had like the Incredipad from Microfiber Madness, which had a great reputation, which was more viscose. So less, different type of material, less absorbent material than full-on microfiber blends, which microfiber kind of pulls the dirt in a little bit more. So the viscose was quite handy because it cleaned off well and it still felt like microfiber. So all this technology, whoa, don't drop your wash mitt. The Chanel, the old trusty Chanel, the synthetic wool, which you've often, if you follow the channel, I'm less confident with, I think is the right word, but so that's the history of the sponge. Very bad if you use a sponge. It's worse if you use the sponge, you are lower down than someone that drops a microfiber on the floor and then like, or leaves it on the floor while they're detailing. If you ever did that, you're in trouble. Okay, you do that once and post a picture of you cleaning the car with your microfiber on the gravel driveway, and that's it. Your life changes. You'll never recover from the horror of that. Right, then sponges started making a little bit of a comeback, and I saw, you know, detailing brands offering sponges to use with wash systems and sponges to be used with rinseless systems like this Optimum Big Red Sponge to be used with Optimum No Rinse. You know, so they started making a comeback, and then more and more people started using them, and then the fear was less, and there was more technology in these, like with the slots in it and the shape, and maybe the foam as well is a lot more. It comes from a higher quality place than the type of people that are mass producing these types of sponges, which are like £1. okay, which is an interesting thing. And some people say, well, you can just use a grouting sponge or you can use a cheap sponge. It's just a sponge, it doesn't make any difference. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. And then you have, I've seen sponges, the Soft 99 one that have got the waffle texture on them and different layers and all that sort of stuff. Softer foams that are more like finishing pads rather than stiffer foams. So I always still preferred using wash mitts back then, and probably still do nowadays. In fact, actually generally still do. I think about 6 years ago or something like that. If it's that long, that's crazy. But I think it might be 5 years ago. We did a Pro Detailers mega test on wash media, and part of that test involved taking flawless, polished black panels, making a dirt, it's not a dirt simulator, but a bucket full of dirt basically, you know, mud and stuff like that, mixing it all up and then putting that solution onto each of those panels, and then using each of the different wash media, you know, separately. So the dirt's on the panel, you take the wash media in the bucket with whatever was in it, I think it was some soap, and then trying to wipe that panel consistently, same pressure, same amount of passes, then move on to the next wash media in the next panel, do the same, film the before and after and look at the results. Doing that test influenced me because the sponge, when there was dirt involved, put in the most scratches. When there wasn't dirt involved, obviously they're all pretty much fine, but we sanity checked that as well. So all of the media of course doesn't scratch clear coat unless you've got like some clear coat sponsored by Roundtree's Fruit Pastels. Some of the cheap stuff it might be possible, but even then I don't think so. So the media doesn't scratch, but it's how they act on the dirt can make a difference. And funnily enough, the cheap old Chanel did remarkable. It was the clear winner when you're wiping off dirt under that same condition in terms of how much scratches we saw. Now, of course, that could require further exploration with different types of dirt, backed up with real world testing, repeated testing and all that. But it was limited, but the results were results. And the wool and the microfiber and the synthetic wool were somewhere in between. In fact, I think, don't quote me on this, that the synthetic wool was the one that seemed to be a higher risk of that actually marring up a test surface with no dirt involved. And I feel that the synthetic wool fibres are not as soft as a really good quality wool mitt. Indeed, there's different qualities of wool mitt. Some very good quality, very fine, you know, lamb's wool or something, merino wool, and some might be a cheaper Chinese made wool that might be a coarser wool. Same with microfiber quality and all that sort of stuff, but that's really getting into it, isn't it? But you could argue that the people that make these should be into it, and they are, which is good. So we got all this talk of quality as well. So that influenced me as well, and it made me less. I was using the Incredipad, which I just thought the form of it was really good, and it was really robust, and it lasted for ages, and it just did a good job. That made me start using the Chanels, and I couldn't find a pad Chanel. They just don't last for the foam inside them. So I tend to just use this floppy one. This is an auto fiber one, which is robust, but gets wet and it goes like a floppy glove. And so I don't like the experience of using a Chanel versus these pads. And I like all of these pads. That GYEON pad is very good. It's like a mitt combined with a pad. This DabDab I think is really good. It's really good. I'll probably cut that cuff off it, or that thing off it. It's really good. I tend to reach for that more than any of them, but it doesn't really matter. They're all pretty good. We've covered that. Okay, so what is really the score with all of this kind of stuff and dirt? And I think it goes back to common sense. Now, there is no way on earth that a brand like Optimum would have sold you a sponge if there was a massively increased risk of poor results and scratches and all that sort of stuff. And indeed, I happily use sponges with rinseless wash, and I could happily use it with a normal wash technique. But it's the common sense thing. My thoughts are the more of this that's on the surface, the higher the risk of scratching with any wash media. And potentially the more of this, there could be slightly more risk if you're using a sponge, even if it's a, you know, even if it's got this technology and slots in it and all that sort of stuff, because ultimately when that goes on, this compresses slightly. Obviously your technique and pressure affect it, and you're compressing it, and this is all kind of flat, and where you compress it, you move it. So the danger with the sponge is you use it really heavily handed, because the car needs a good clean, so you're going fast and heavy, and you're really going aggressive because you're not thinking about detailing. You're just using it. So that's the risk. I think it's a little bit of common sense and misuse when there's more dirt becomes more of a risk. And I think in that worst case scenario, when you're covered in dirt and you're wiping off the panel, then the Chanel might be slightly better, but it still might not save you if you're going Rambo mode. So I personally think sponges are fine when you're aware of all of this stuff and you're into your detailing and you've got a little bit of a process going on and you get some of this dirt off before, or you're using a rinseless wash that's encapsulating it and you're following the instructions and just washing with a little bit of care and all that sort of stuff. So common sense. Yeah, I'm just referring to my notes. The amount of dirt on the panel equals risk. The pressure you use equals risk. The chemical choice that you're using and your approach to cleaning it can affect your risk. Like I say, if you're using it with a rinseless, you might have some more protection there than if you're using a sponge with a traditional soap, potentially. There is also the argument that the flip side, that this actually cleans really well like a sponge. Like it mounts up to the surface really well and like forms to it and on curves and stuff, and you get more dirt off with it. And the positives are that it doesn't hold on to dirt and it releases it. That definitely happens. You can get away with rinsing these off. You know, they don't often need to be washed in a machine, or maybe even shouldn't. I've done it a couple of times when I felt they were really dirty. And the more you get off, then the less that's going to be lurking around when you go to dry the car and buff on it with a towel when it's not all soaked out in solution and water. So it's all mitigated, and it's all that common sense and process argument, and I buy into that. So my summary of all this is, I really like sponges. Yeah, I like them. I like the cheap ones for destructive cleaning. I always use that word, of wheel arches, and you know, under the engine bay cover, you know, the boot lid cover on my Porsche, or the engine at the front, under there, areas that need a good wipe over. Wheel arches is the one that really springs to mind, those plastic wheel arches. Maybe stuff on interiors and stuff, just where you're not worried about this so much and you know it's going to get hammered. Because I wouldn't hammer this. This is a premium one, and this I see as like a tool that I want to maintain and keep good and use with a proper process and system. Yeah, and I'm quite excited by that, and I like the idea of that, and it makes me want to look at all of these premium ones, even just the little things, the way that holds in your hand with the two little slots gives you a better grip on it, and it just feels good, and you can feel there's a bit more thought gone into it. The downside is the price, and people say in the comments, and I've said it, that I think these are a bit too expensive for the UK market, whatever they are, £30. Maybe. I mean, they are. As soon as I say it, I feel that's what I feel. And I'd love it if they're about £15. But I also think these are a mass-produced item that are just churned out without much thought going into it. You know, it's a certain quality of foam. These are not a mass-produced sponge. There'll be relatively small production runs of these, lower numbers sold. And it's the point of how many do you sell before you've actually recouped your purchase on getting them, you know, having them manufactured and all that. And then you need to be in profit as well. So these are always going to be a bit more expensive. And it's where it should be. It's where it should be. I think these will last longer, especially if you look after them. If you go heavy-handed with it, I'm sure you could still tear it all up. If you're dragging over wheel arches and things, you could tear this up. But if you look after this, it will last you many, many years. This is like 8 years old. It only gets used really in the summer. It doesn't get used all that often, but I figure it would last me another 10 years if I look after it. So is it worth exploring all the other ones? Possibly, yeah. I don't know what there is really out there and how the pricing goes, but it would be nice to know what is the best kind of sponge media on the market to a certain extent. The problem is in the UK, there's a lot of cynicism towards sponges. Yeah, like the simple thing for me is Optimum wouldn't sell this with their rinseless system if it was consistently able to scratch cars worse than other wash media. They just wouldn't bother. They would go down a different route. They'd have learnt that after, you know, they'd have learnt that if they hadn't spotted that when they're testing all their products and stuff, they'd have learnt it rapidly, and there'd be stuff on social media saying it's scratched up all my paint. It doesn't do that. It's down to you. So it definitely in my book is viable. But it's that misuse that if you go in heavy-handed is the potential risk, I think. So it is the common sense thing. So I like them. I also like the idea of exploring them. I like the idea of having like what could be the best on the market. At sort of £15 to £20, I am comfortable trying these and buying them. I think when it gets to 30, I'm less comfortable, and it's harder to test because if you get 10 and they're 30 quid each, it's 300 quid. The video makes 50 quid. You're going to lose 250 quid. They are all going to be similar. They're all going to be similar, but yeah, I do buy into it. I like the idea of two different types of foam, a hard one on one side to support it, and maybe a softer one on one side, or a core of softness, or whatever technology. We've got the slots, you've got the waffles. Someone else might bring one out with different types. You've got the hex sponge over there with the hex pattern in it, you know, like the chemical guys one. So yeah, not much seems to be going on in the world of sponges at the moment. There are sponge specialist companies doing the sponges on sticks for cleaning the wheels. It hasn't really taken off as far as I can see, but they could be good. There's people that tell me they wash their car with a certain type of organic sponge in the comments that's lasted them 20 years and it's the softest sponge on the market and all that, whatever it might be. Yeah, I think I buy into the rinseless. I buy into the rinseless thing, and this sort of product would be what I would look to explore. But maybe we'll do it. So that is sponges. Can you wash your car with them? Yes. Should you? It's entirely up to you, but you absolutely can. I wouldn't go near them if there was risk. The carbon fibre roof on my car is a soft, I don't know if it's gel coat or clear coat. I think it's clear coat, but it's what came with it. And I've rinseless washed that, and it's more about if I'm careful, and I'll notice if it starts swirling up, and it hasn't. Again, if I'm putting in more swirls from doing kind of rinseless wash and stuff like that, it'll be stuff that I could mitigate with better technique. But generally, this car's looking pretty good. And I've been doing all the rinseless stuff on it, and I'm looking at exploring more rinselesses because I'm just enjoying it at the moment. Part of that enjoyment is the bolt on of the sponge. It creates another line of interest for me. Yeah, and I like all that. So where I'm at with it is I've got a box full of all these different types. That's the new, what's that? That's the new Delipad. Delicate pad, I think that's supposed to be Microfiber Madness. Microfiber Madness ones are really, really good actually. Really good. They're really, really good. But the problem is they're all really good. That's really good. And I like the way that's unique. I like the way you can put your hand in that as well for the sides of the car. That is the one I tend to reach for, funny enough. It's just all soft, but it's not too floppy. It's like a big daddy bear porridge, mummy bear and baby bear. You just find the one you like. I seem to be reaching for that. This I used to love. I used to love the quality of this, but it's funny, it's little things that, because this is a skin, you know, it's a fully organic product and the hide is in there. it gets heavy with the water and quite, not floppy, but just like a heavy kind of leathery thing, sort of making the core. It's very dense though, there's no doubt about it. These Dooka were absolutely top drawer, and everyone used to rave about these, and I haven't heard them mentioned in years. They're really good though. This is interesting. This is a soft 99 one. I don't know if it's on the market, but it's full of little foam squares so you can absorb all the things. And this meshing is, you sometimes see them, it's useful for glass and bugs. And then the other side is just soft microfiber. That's quite good. I've been reaching for that. That's a good size. That size is important for me as well with that. I like the size of that. This is all soft and you can wring it out. You can chuck it in the washing machine. That's quite good. So I'm interested to see when that goes on sale, what happens with that, if people like that. It's not as shaggy as these, but again, it's fine. So we know about the Optimum Big Red Sponge, and we might explore some of the other ones. That's a GYEON one for wiping off tar after you use their tar and glue. I think it's more like I mean, if you've done a fallout remover, this twisted loop is a bit more aggressive, but if you're using it as part of decon, you get a bit more grab from it, I think, maybe. I don't know. So I used that the other day after spraying on the tar. Yeah, probably just a bit more bite than using these soft ones. That's a wheel glove. I don't tend to use that too much, but that's very soft. You put it on your hands and get around the spokes with it. These cheap ones I've had, if you followed the channel, these are like £1 or something. I've had those for years and they're indestructible, man. They're not the best. But like for dirty stuff, they're good. It lasts so long. I've probably still got ones there. Oh, they've all been used, but a couple of them are like mint, and some of them I use, and then when they get really bad, I throw them away because they're like £1 each. So yeah, I just find it all interesting. I've got way too many of these. I've got way too many of this, and this is all high quality, good offerings. And it's just take your pick, really. Take your pick. It's more down to you than any of the stuff. Even though we've done the opposite of that. It's with the channel. We've done the opposite of it. It's all down to you and your technique, which is true. We've sort of like looked at it and tried to quantify the performance, and I think what we did was valid. But it is all down to you. Just use whatever one you like. I've heard every argument, every debate. Some people, when I was talking about these ones, people are saying, well, you can just get the one off Alibaba and it's like £4 or £5 and it's virtually the same. You know, that might be 5% better for like treble the cost, all of these. Yeah, that's life, isn't it? So that's up to you. Those Alibaba ones are good and cheap. Yeah, you just got so many wash mitts now. Every area of detailing has got a vast array of offerings, and it is very hard to get your head around what to know, what to use. But I still think when I did that video, I tried to answer that, and it wasn't including sponges. It would just muddy the water, if you pardon the pun. Yeah, it was about kind of pads, which are my favourite kind of user experience. It's a bit wide, that one, actually. It's a bit wide on the hand. That's unusual because they're good. It's a bit narrower. But yeah, this one, for some reason, this one just feels right. And I suppose you could argue that's good. I don't like having it stuck to my hand because then I just want to be able to throw it down into the bucket or whatever. If it's on your arm, I know it's there to stop you dropping it, but if I drop it, I'll go and get another one, you know, and use another one and wash that. I'd rather that probably wasn't there, but I'll just cut it off. There we go. That is the subject of sponges. I think that covers absolutely everything. Thanks for watching.